Wednesday the 28th of December 2022. Wet and windy outside, so I'm not riding. Today's project is to make some front mudguard brackets for my 1952 BSA Bantam. The whole idea is that I'm going to make these brackets out of quite thick aluminium and bend them around a former, probably a socket. I've had great success of that in the past, but here we go. So looking at the diameter, it is 35 millimeters, so that'll be quite a large socket that I use for forming the new brackets. Let's take a look. Let's go to the shed. So here you can see the old what was once arguably chromed front mudguard stay for my 1952 BSA. Mild steel, chrome plated, rusty, crusty, and they're out of stock. And unashamedly, I went to B&Q yesterday with my son Dan and bought a what must be 1.5 meters of aluminium for £6.30. So we're going to recreate this bracket using a former, which actually happens to be, I know I said I was going to work in millimeters, but this is a 1-inch Imperial Draper socket. So the idea will be that I will bend this around the 1-inch socket, acting as a former, to recreate this rather crusty bracket using aluminium. Apologies for the flickering. This time I'm really close to a 2-meter fluorescent tube. So anyway, as I said earlier, I've got my 1-inch Imperial Draper socket. I've got my very roughly cut piece of aluminium, and I'm going to basically form by bending it over a new bracket. Let's see how we get on. I'm squeezing it in the vise and we'll have a look. Let's see what we've done. I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to work out where I've gone wrong. I'm going to have to think about this and have a go. Well, I got to say, as a first attempt at forming with the aluminium the correct diameter, the problem is obviously on the leading edge or the edge against the mudguard. This needs to be flat, so putting it into a socket and simply applying a vise around the aluminium hasn't actually worked. Well, it has actually done exactly what I asked it to do, but I've got to think now, how do I affect a straight line from the edge of the bracket, as you can see here. So back to the drawing board for forming, but this is the whole idea, isn't it, of a winter afternoon, messing in the shed and trying to make something that you've never done before. But back to the drawing board, and I'll be back in a few minutes when I've had a rethink. So attempt 2, but I've made a really stupid mistake. I've made this aluminium too short, so I'm certainly working my way through 1.5 meters, but can people get the general idea? This vise face keeps this absolutely on the bend as I apply pressure with the vise, and I'll demonstrate it now. It will work its way round. Can you see that? Okay, so that socket's slipping. It's to be expected. Forgive me, I've got my Manfrotto arm holding the camera, but this again is applying pressure, and as you can see there, between my thumb and my finger, it's bending it around, but it's simply too short. I'm not going to end up with enough meat to create the flat for the bracket to be made successfully, but I think I'm getting there. Let's have a look. Attempt 3. So attempt 3 is looking a little bit more reasonable. So look, first one, you'll notice the profile, as I said, for the leading edge of the mudguard was no good, so that's discarded. And what I've done here is I'm working it away around the vise. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the whole assembly to the left, and I'm going to put another socket to create the push at this side, maintaining the grip at the socket face of the aluminium. Let's see how we get on. So hopefully you can get the idea. What I'm actually doing is I'm applying force. Oh look, that's slipping. So I'm going to just hold it with my thumb, and look, it's actually starting to take shape. So let's just carry on. So I think this is going to be a two-parter because it's time I opened a beer. But you can see exactly what I'm doing. I'm using a series of sockets to gently persuade the aluminium to bend around the appropriate 1-inch draper socket there. And in the end I'll trim it off, probably put a nice bullnose profile on and drill it for my front mudguards. But there we go, just to show you what I'm trying to achieve. You can see it there, and you can see that the profile is taking shape. That was the first one where I didn't realise, or I took my eye off the ball, that I actually had a profile that went against the mudguard. So it'll be a part 2 because I'm going in. I said it was December 2022. I've still got the snivels. So attempt 1. Attempt 2, where I realised I'd cut it too short by being a bit tight with the aluminium. And then attempt 3, which I think you can see is starting to take the correct profile for the mudguard bracket. But I'll come back to it, and part 2 will show you how I actually formed it around the socket and finished the bracket. Thanks for watching. If you like these short little videos with absolutely no skill, and often they are a journey of discovery because I don't have a background in engineering, please think about hitting the like button. And if you want to be assured to see the next one, please think about hitting the subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you've all had a decent Christmas and you're looking forward to celebrating 2023, which, as a motorcyclist, we're all hoping that the weather will be warm and dry, not too hot, just right for calling in at the pub and the coffee shop on our classic motorcycles. See you again soon.